So we're going through the sixth chapter of Gittin, and we're exploring the boundaries of agency. And in the two Mishnayot, which we're going to cover today, we're going to start with the wife, but we're going to end with the husband. And we're going to see what kind of agency he might have to provide, for example, a conditional get, a conditional bill of divorce in case he should not survive. Well, let's start with the wife. And we've already established that she can appoint an agent to receive the get on her behalf. Maybe she doesn't want to meet her husband. Maybe she can't meet him. Maybe they're in different places. And the question that the Mishnah is interested in is, well, at what point does the get take effect? At what point does the divorce take effect? And the Mishnah is going to test this by the point at which, if she's married to a Kohen, the point at which she has to stop eating truma. As long as she continues to be married to a Kohen, she can carry on eating truma. Once the marriage ceases, she can't eat truma anymore. And this is effectively a day-to-day measure as to whether she's still married or more, which is a much more efficient measure than whether she can get remarried again. I mean, she may not wish to get remarried immediately, but she has to decide from day to day whether she's going to eat truma or not. So she says, and now we're in the fourth Mishnah of the sixth chapter, Haveli Giti, bring me my get. She appoints the agent to bring her get. Ochelet bi truma ad sheyagia get al yada. She can eat truma until the get reaches her hand. So in other words, she's appointed this shaliach to bring the get to her. She's married until she receives the get into her hand. If she says, on the other hand, hit kabeli giti, receive for me my get, i.e., I'm not going to receive the get. I'm appointing you to receive the get on my behalf. Asura milecho bitrumot miyad. She's forbidden to eat truma immediately. Now, we don't quite know at which point the messenger is going to receive the get, but we're going to be machmir, we're going to be strict, we're going to be careful. So there is a point, at any point from this point on, the get may be received by the messenger, so she will stop eating truma immediately. Hitkabeli giti mi makom ploni. What if she puts a condition on the reception of the get? Receive my get for me, but in such a place. So it's conditional. Her appointment of the messenger is conditional on the get reaching that place. Ochelet bi trumot ad sheyagia get lo oto hamakom. She can eat truma until the get reaches that place, i.e., that the shalichut doesn't take effect until the get reaches that place. And Rabbi Elazar, by the way, is going to disagree. Rabbi Elazar oser miyad. Rabbi Elazar forbids immediately because he doesn't really know at what point the get is going to reach that place. So he will forbid her immediately from eating truma. What about the husband? Let's look at the agency of the husband now. This is where the Mishnah wants to go. Ha'omer kidvu get. If a man says, write a get and give it to my wife. So he's been very specific. He's mentioned his wife and he's mentioned the get. And we've said before that a get has to be written for a particular person. It can't be, it's not a general document. So someone who says, write a get and give it to my wife. Or garshuha, divorce her. Or kitvu igeritu tnula, or write a letter and give it to her. Hare elu yichtvu veignu. They should write it and give it to her. In other words, all these are valid ways of appointing a messenger, appointing a shaliach, appointing an agent from the point of view of the husband. But if he's a bit more general than that, we'll find that the more general language doesn't work. Pitruha, paranasuha, asula, kanimos. If he said, release her or provide for her or do what is, what the law says. Asela karaui, do the proper thing for her. Lo amar klum. He hasn't said anything. These aren't specific enough to be considered to be an instruction to write a get. But Arishona hayu omrim. Originally, they used to say hayotse b'kola ve'amar kidvu get utnu liishti. Originally, they said that if someone was going out to be executed and then said, write a get and give it to my wife, they may write and they may give. And why would someone want to do that? Well, would someone prefer to be divorced than widowed? Well, let's think about, for example, a couple that were childless. If this man had a brother, he might want, and he knew that his wife didn't want to marry his brother, he might want to save his wife the embarrassment and the trouble of going through chalitza if he made her a divorcee rather than making her a widow. So he might want to, if he knows he's going to decease, he might want to write a get for his wife to make life a bit easier. That's a last gift, effectively, he gives his wife. So they used to permit this, but then they loosened up, Chazru Lomar, and then they changed. They went back and they said, Af hamafrish, even someone even someone going away, even if you're going for a long journey or for a ship journey, voyage in ship was a dangerous thing in those days. Even that kind of person could give instructions to write a get in the event that he didn't come back. Rabbi Shimon Shezurim or Af Hamusukan. Rabbi Shimon Shezuri says, even if you were in danger, even if someone were maybe dangerously ill, he might give instructions for a get to be written for his wife. And it's interesting that the Gemara in Ketubot says, Kol hayotze lemilchemet beit David, get kritut kotev liishto. Anyone who goes to war for the house of David, any of the soldiers of the house of David, would write a bill of divorce for his wife. And Rashi, I mean, this statement occurs in the context of Uriah the Hittite. So maybe there's a little bit of a whitewash of King David going there, but it's an interesting insight into how you might behave going into a dangerous situation. And there is halachic literature from the 19th century that discusses writing a get before going, let's say, before going off to the Russian army, before conscription. And Rashi says there, get kritut kotzev liishto, writing a bill of divorce for his wife. She'im yamut b'milchama yehe get miyom ktivato. If he died in war, the divorce document would take effect Yom Ktivato. It would take effect retroactively from the day it was written. So in other words, you could retroactively divorce from the time it was written. And then the whitewash of King David and Uriah veharei mate Uriah b'milchama, and behold, Uriah died in war. So you can see why this episode comes in the Gemara in Ketubot, but it does have real halachic significance certainly in the 19th and early 20th centuries, and possibly today.